The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the Riverside Music Conservatory, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. It was audition day, and the hallways buzzed with nervous energy. Young musicians clutched their sheet music, practicing fingerings in the air, humming scales under their breath. Parents checked watches and straightened their children's collars. Everyone wanted to make the right impression. 12-year-old Lily Chen stood near the entrance with her mother, listening to the symphony of sounds around her. The tap of heels on marble, whispered conversations echoing off high ceilings, the distant sound of a violin warming up somewhere deep in the building. She held her white cane loosely in one hand while her other hand rested on her mother's arm. "There's a bench just ahead, sweetheart," her mother said softly, guiding her forward. "We can sit and wait for your name to be called." Lily had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Ever since she first heard a recording of Chopin's nocturnes, she knew this was what she wanted. Not just to play piano, but to truly understand music, to speak its language fluently. Her local teacher had encouraged her to apply to the conservatory, calling her the most naturally gifted student she'd ever taught. But Lily knew the real world was different from her supportive little studio back home. They settled onto the wooden bench, and Lily's mother squeezed her hand. Around them, she could hear other students being called into the audition room. Each time the heavy oak door opened, a snippet of piano music would float out before being cut off again. Some performances were hesitant and shaky. Others were technically perfect but somehow cold. "Lily Chen," a woman's voice called out clearly. Her heart jumped. This was it. Her mother helped her stand, and together they walked toward the voice. Lily's cane made soft clicking sounds as it swept the floor in front of her, a rhythm she'd known since she was 5 years old. The audition room was vast. Lily could tell by the way sounds echoed differently here, bouncing off distant walls. The air smelled of old wood and furniture polish. Her mother guided her toward the center of the room where she knew the piano would be waiting. "Good morning." The voice came from somewhere ahead, deep and accented, Russian maybe or Eastern European. "I am Professor Viktor Petrov. I will be evaluating your audition today." "Good morning, Professor," Lily said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm honored to be here." There was a pause. She heard the rustle of papers, then footsteps as the professor moved closer. "You may approach the piano," he said, his tone businesslike. Lily's mother walked her forward until her cane touched the piano's leg. She ran her free hand along the smooth wood, finding the bench and settling herself onto it. Her fingers found the keys, touching them lightly. A Baldwin grand, she thought. The keys had that particular weight and responsiveness. "Professor Petrov," her mother began. "I should mention that Lily has been blind since birth. But she's been playing piano for 8 years and blind since birth?" The professor's voice had changed, taken on an edge. "Yes, sir," Lily's mother continued. "But she has perfect pitch and an exceptional memory for—" "Stop." The word cut through the air like a knife. Lily felt her stomach drop. "You are telling me this child cannot read music?" "She learns by ear," her mother explained quickly. "She listens to recordings and her teacher plays sections for her and she—" "This is a conservatory, madam, not a music therapy program." Professor Petrov's footsteps moved away from the piano. Classical piano requires sight reading. It requires the ability to study scores, to understand notation, to learn new pieces independently. Without these fundamental skills, professional training is simply not possible. Lily's hands trembled slightly on the keys. She hadn't even played a single note. "Professor, please," she said, her voice small but determined. "If you just let me play something, I can show you." "I have been teaching piano for 37 years, he interrupted. "I have taught at conservatories in Moscow, Vienna, and New York. I have trained students who now perform in concert halls around the world. In all that time, I have never encountered a blind student who could achieve the level of mastery required for classical performance. But that doesn't mean it's impossible," Lily's mother said, her voice rising with frustration. "My daughter has real talent. If you would just give her 5 minutes, I am giving her a kindness by being honest now rather than allowing her to waste years pursuing an unrealistic goal." The professor's tone was final. "There are many programs designed specifically for disabled musicians. Music can be wonderfully therapeutic, but this institution trains professional concert pianists. The technical demands, the repertoire requirements, the need for independent study, these things require sight." Lily felt hot tears building behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of him. Her fingers pressed down gently on middle C, barely making a sound. Please, she whispered one more time. The decision is made. Professor Petrov's voice came from near the door now. Mrs. Chen, if you will collect your daughter, I have other students waiting. Lily heard her mother's sharp intake of breath, the anger and helplessness in it. She felt her mother's hand on her shoulder, gentle but shaking slightly. Come on, sweetheart, her mother said quietly. Let's go. As Lily stood and picked up her cane, she heard Professor Petrov speaking to someone else in the room, probably his assistant. Make a note, he said, not bothering to lower his voice. We should add vision requirements to the audition prerequisites. These situations waste everyone's time. The words hit Lily like a physical blow. Waste of time. That's what he thought she was. Her mother guided her toward the door, moving quickly now, wanting to get out before her own anger exploded. As they passed through the doorway, Lily heard Professor Petrov's voice one last time, speaking to his assistant. Blind students belong in therapeutic settings, not professional conservatories. Music can be a wonderful hobby for them, but let's not confuse kind intentions with realistic assessment of capability. The heavy door closed behind them with a soft thud. The hallway seemed quieter now, or maybe Lily was just lost in her own thoughts. Her mother said nothing as they walked, but Lily could feel the tension radiating from her, could hear the too quick rhythm of her breathing. They made it outside before her mother finally spoke. He's wrong, Lily, you know that, right? He's completely wrong. But Lily wasn't sure what she knew anymore. This was supposed to be her big chance, the place where serious musicians trained. If someone with Professor Petrov's experience and reputation believed she couldn't do it, maybe he was right. Maybe she had been fooling herself all along. The ride home was long and quiet. Lily stared at nothing, her mind replaying every word Professor Petrov had said. Waste of time. Not possible, unrealistic. The words spun around and around like a dark melody she couldn't escape. But somewhere beneath the hurt and humiliation, something else was stirring. Something that felt like anger but stronger, more focused. Professor Petrov hadn't even let her play. He judged her before she touched a single key, decided her worth based on what she couldn't do rather than what she could. That night, after her mother had gone to bed, Lily sat at their small upright piano in the living room. Her fingers found the keys in the darkness that was always her world, and slowly, quietly, she began to play. Not the piece she'd prepared for the audition. Something different. Something that expressed everything she felt. The hurt, the anger, the determination that was building inside her like a storm. She played until her fingers ached, until the first light of dawn began warming the room. And somewhere in those hours she made herself a promise. She would prove Professor Viktor Petrov wrong, no matter how long it took. The rejection from Professor Petrov changed something fundamental in Lily. The morning after the audition, she woke up with a strange sense of clarity. The hurt was still there, sitting heavy in her chest, but it had transformed into something else overnight, something useful. She made her way to the kitchen where her mother was making breakfast. The smell of toast and coffee filled the small apartment. Mom, Lily said, her voice steady and determined. I need more practice time. A lot more. Her mother set down the coffee pot. Sweetheart, you already practice 3 hours a day. That's more than most kids your age. It's not enough. Lily felt her way to the kitchen table and sat down. If I'm going to prove him wrong, I need to be better than good. I need to be exceptional. There was a long pause. Then her mother's hand found hers across the table, squeezing gently. Okay, she said simply. We'll figure it out. That afternoon, Lily sat down with her piano teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. The older woman had been teaching piano for 40 years, working out of a small studio attached to her house. She'd taught hundreds of students, but she'd told Lily's mother once that Lily was special, that she had something rare. Mrs. Rodriguez, Lily said, I need you to be completely honest with me. Can I really do this? Can someone like me become a real concert pianist? Mrs. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Lily heard her shift in her chair, the familiar creak of the old wood. You want the truth? The real truth? Yes. It's going to be harder for you than for other students. Much harder. You'll have to work twice as long to learn pieces that sighted students can learn in half the time. You'll face people like Professor Petrov your whole career, people who'll doubt you before you play a single note. She paused. But Lily, I've been teaching long enough to recognize real talent when I hear it. You don't just play the notes. You understand the music. You feel it. That's something you can't teach, and most students never develop it no matter how many years they study. So you think I can do it? I think if anyone can, it's you. But only if you're willing to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. Lily felt a smile spread across her face. When do we start? They completely redesigned her practice schedule. Lily began waking up at 5 in the morning to practice for 2 hours before school. After school, she'd practice another 3 hours. Then after dinner, another 2 hours, 8 hours a day, every day. Her mother rearranged her work schedule, taking the early shift at the hospital so she could be home when Lily got back from school. Mrs. Rodriguez developed a new teaching method specifically for Lily. She would play a section of a piece, then Lily would repeat it. They'd break down complex passages into smaller chunks, sometimes just 2 or 3 measures at a time. Mrs. Rodriguez would record each section on a small digital recorder, and Lily would listen to it over and over, her fingers memorizing the patterns. But it wasn't just about memorization. Mrs. Rodriguez taught Lily to understand the structure of the music, to recognize patterns and progressions that would help her remember longer pieces. She taught her to feel the music through the piano itself, to sense the vibrations that traveled through the wood and into her body. The first few weeks were brutal. Lily's fingers ached constantly. Her back hurt from sitting at the piano for so many hours. She fell asleep during classes at school. Her friends asked her to hang out, but she had no time. Birthday parties, movies, trips to the mall, she missed all of it. One evening, about a month into the new routine, Lily broke down crying in the middle of practicing Chopin's Etude in C minor. Her fingers stumbled over a particularly difficult passage for the 20th time, and suddenly everything felt impossible. Her mother heard her crying and came into the living room. She sat down on the piano bench beside Lily and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "It's okay to stop," her mother said gently. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone." Lily leaned into her mother's warmth. "But I want to prove it. Not just to him, but to myself. I need to know if I can really do this." "Then we keep going," her mother said. "But remember, you're 12 years old. It's okay to be a kid sometimes, too." Lily wiped her tears and put her hands back on the keys. "Just a little longer," she said. "I almost have this passage." 3 months into her intensive training, something shifted. Lily woke up one morning and realized that her fingers knew where to go before her mind did. The muscle memory had finally clicked into place. Pieces that had seemed impossibly difficult were becoming manageable. She was starting to understand what Mrs. Rodriguez meant about feeling the music. Mrs. Rodriguez noticed the change, too. "You're ready to start competing," she announced one day. "Competing?" Lily's heart raced. "You mean like competitions?" "Exactly like competitions. There's a regional piano competition next month. The junior division. I think you should enter." Lily felt nervous excitement bubble up in her chest. "What if I mess up? What if everyone thinks—" "Stop!" Mrs. Rodriguez interrupted firmly. "What did I tell you about that kind of thinking?" Lily smiled despite herself. "That the only person's opinion that matters is my own." "Exactly. Now let's get you prepared." The competition was held at a local university auditorium. Lily's mother led her backstage where a dozen other young pianists waited nervously. She could hear them warming up, playing scales and arpeggios. Some of them were talking about their private conservatory teachers, their expensive grand pianos at home. When Lily's name was called, she made her way onto the stage. She heard whispers from the audience when they saw her white cane, the familiar doubt in people's voices. But this time, instead of shrinking from it, she felt that determination burn brighter. She settled at the piano and began to play Mozart's Piano Sonata in C major. From the first notes, she felt different than she had at the conservatory audition. Confident, present. She wasn't just playing the notes, she was telling a story, having a conversation through the music. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then applause erupted through the auditorium. Real applause, not just polite clapping. She didn't win that competition. She placed third. But Mrs. Rodriguez was beaming when they looked at the results. "Third place in your first competition ever? Lily, do you know how remarkable that is?" Over the next 6 months, Lily entered 5 more competitions. She placed second in one, first in 2 others. Each time she felt herself growing stronger, more confident. She was developing a reputation in the regional music community. People started talking about her, the blind girl who played Chopin and Rachmaninoff from memory with incredible emotional depth. Local newspapers wrote small articles about her. A classical music radio station interviewed her. One judge at a competition told her mother, "I've been judging these events for 20 years. Your daughter has something special. Real artistry." But through it all, Lily had one goal in mind. The Riverside Music Conservatory, Professor Petrov's conservatory. She kept a newspaper clipping about the school's annual scholarship competition on her bulletin board. Every morning when she woke up, she'd touch it, reminding herself why she was doing this. One evening, Mrs. Rodriguez arrived at their apartment with news. Her voice was excited, almost shaking. "Lily, the conservatory just announced this year's competition details. The preliminary round is in 6 weeks." Lily's hands went cold. 6 weeks? Your recent competition wins qualify you to enter. The prize is a full scholarship and a chance to perform with a professional orchestra. Mrs. Rodriguez paused. Professor Petrov will be one of the head judges. Lily felt everything inside her go still. This was it. This was the moment she'd been working toward for almost a year. The chance to show Professor Petrov that he'd been wrong, that she wasn't a waste of time. That blind didn't mean incapable. "I want to enter," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you do," Mrs. Rodriguez replied, "so let's get to work. We have 6 weeks to prepare the performance of your life." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Lily sat at the piano in the darkness. She thought about that day in the conservatory audition room, about Professor Petrov's dismissive voice, about walking out without playing a single note. She thought about all the hours since then, all the practice, all the competitions, all the small victories that had brought her to this point. She placed her hands on the keys and began to play. Not practicing anything specific, just letting the music flow through her. And for the first time since that terrible audition day, she felt truly ready. The 6 weeks before the preliminary round felt like both the longest and shortest period of Lily's life. Every morning she woke up thinking about the competition. Every night she fell asleep with melodies running through her mind. Mrs. Rodriguez had helped her choose 2 pieces for the preliminaries. The first was Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, a piece that required both technical precision and deep emotional expression. The second was Debussy's Clair de Lune, which would showcase her ability to create atmosphere and color through sound. "These pieces will show different sides of your musicality," Mrs. Rodriguez explained. "The Beethoven shows your power and control. The Debussy shows your sensitivity and touch. Together they prove you're a complete musician." Lily practiced the pieces until she could play them in her sleep. She knew every note, every phrase, every subtle dynamic change. But Mrs. Rodriguez pushed her to go deeper. "Don't just play the notes," she would say. "Tell me a story. Make me feel something. When you play the Moonlight Sonata, I want to feel that darkness, that longing. When you play Clair de Lune, I want to see moonlight on water even though I'm just listening." Lily worked on making each phrase sing, on finding the perfect balance between the melody and accompaniment, on creating moments of tension and release. She recorded herself playing and listened back, trying to hear what the judges would hear. The day finally came to submit her application. Her mother helped her fill out the forms and they mailed the package to the conservatory. Then came the waiting. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Lily tried not to think about it constantly, but it was impossible. Every day when she came home from school, she'd ask if any mail had arrived. Every day her mother would shake her head. Then on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, her mother's voice trembled as she called out, "Lily, there's a letter from the conservatory." Lily's heart stopped. She heard the sound of an envelope being torn open, the rustle of paper being unfolded. "You're in," her mother said, her voice breaking with emotion. "You're in the preliminary round." Lily felt her knees go weak. She reached for the kitchen counter to steady herself. "Are you sure?" "Read it again." Her mother read the letter aloud. Lily had been selected as one of 40 students to compete in the preliminary round. The top 6 would advance to the finals. The finals would be held in the conservatory's grand concert hall with a panel of distinguished judges. What the letter didn't say, but what Lily knew, was that Professor Petrov would be there, watching, judging, maybe even remembering the blind girl he'd dismissed a year ago. The preliminary round was held on a Saturday morning. The conservatory had assigned each contestant a specific time slot. Lily's was at 10:30, right in the middle of the schedule. Her mother drove her to the conservatory, the same building where she'd been rejected. Walking through those doors again felt surreal. The marble floors, the high ceilings, the smell of furniture polish, it was all exactly as she remembered. But this time was different. This time she wasn't asking for a chance. She'd earned her place here. A student volunteer led her to a practice room to warm up. The walls were thin, and she could hear other contestants practicing in nearby rooms. Some of them sounded incredible, technically flawless. She felt doubt creep in, that familiar voice that whispered maybe you're not good enough. But then she remembered something Mrs. Rodriguez had told her. Technical perfection is impressive, but it's not everything. Music isn't just about playing the right notes at the right time. It's about connection. It's about making people feel something real. When her time came, a different volunteer led her to the audition room. It was smaller than the main concert hall, but still formal and intimidating. She could feel 3 or 4 people in the room, the judges sitting somewhere ahead of her. "Please state your name and the pieces you'll be performing," a woman's voice said. "My name is Lily Chen. I'll be playing Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, first movement, and Debussy's Clair de Lune." She heard the scratch of pens on paper as the judges made notes. Then silence. They were waiting for her to begin. Lily settled at the piano, her hands finding their starting position. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Then she began. The opening notes of the Moonlight Sonata floated into the room, soft and haunting. Lily forgot about the judges, forgot about the conservatory, forgot about everything except the music. She let herself sink into Beethoven's world of shadows and moonlight, of deep emotion barely contained. The first movement built slowly, the left hand keeping that steady hypnotic rhythm while the right hand sang the melody above. Lily had played this piece hundreds of times, but this time felt different. This time she wasn't just playing for herself or her teacher. She was playing for everyone who had ever doubted her. When the last notes faded away, there was a moment of complete silence in the room. Then the woman's voice said, "Thank you. Your second piece, please." Lily transitioned into Clair de Lune, and the atmosphere in the room changed completely. Where Beethoven had been dark and passionate, Debussy was light and shimmering. Her fingers danced across the keys, creating waves of sound that rose and fell like breathing. She could feel it happening. That magical moment when the music takes over and the pianist becomes just a channel for something larger. Her whole body swayed slightly with the phrases, her face reflecting the emotions of the music even though she couldn't see her own expression. When she finished, she sat still for a moment, her hands resting on the keys. Then she stood and gave a small bow toward where she sensed the judges sitting. "Thank you, Miss Chen," the woman said. "Results will be posted next Friday evening on our website and mailed to all applicants." Lily thanked them and made her way out of the room, her heart pounding. She had no idea how she'd done compared to the other students. All she knew was that she'd played her best. Her mother was waiting in the hallway. "How did it go?" "I don't know," Lily admitted. "I think it went well. I didn't make any major mistakes." "I'm proud of you no matter what happens," her mother said, hugging her tight. The next week dragged by slower than any week in Lily's life. She tried to focus on schoolwork, on her regular practice routine, on anything other than the competition. But her mind kept drifting back to that audition room, replaying every note, wondering if she'd done enough. Finally, Friday evening arrived. At exactly 6 o'clock, her mother opened her laptop and navigated to the conservatory's website. "The results are posted," she said, her voice tight with tension. Lily stood behind her mother's chair, gripping the back of it so hard her knuckles hurt. "Just tell me, am I on the list?" Her mother scrolled through the page and Lily heard her sharp intake of breath. "What? What is it?" Lily demanded. "You're in," her mother whispered. "Lily, you're in the finals. You're one of the 6 finalists." Lily felt the room spin around her. 6 finalists, out of 40 students. She'd made it, her mother kept reading. "The finals will be held 3 weeks from tomorrow in the Grand Concert Hall. Each finalist will perform 1 required piece and 1 piece of their own choosing. The judging panel will be chaired by Professor Viktor Petrov." There it was, the name she'd been both hoping for and dreading. Professor Petrov would be there. He would hear her play. He would remember her, or maybe he wouldn't. Maybe she'd been so insignificant to him that he'd forgotten her completely. But she hadn't forgotten him, and now she would finally have her chance to show him exactly what he'd missed. Mrs. Rodriguez came over that evening, and they immediately began planning for the finals. The required piece for all finalists is Liszt's La Campanella, she announced, reading from the conservatory's website. And you can choose any piece you want for your second selection. Lily felt her stomach drop. La Campanella? That's one of the hardest pieces in the piano repertoire. I know, Mrs. Rodriguez said calmly, which is exactly why they chose it. They want to see what you're really capable of when pushed to your limits. Can I learn it in 3 weeks? Mrs. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. It won't be easy. Most pianists spend months on that piece. But Lily, I've watched you work this past year. If anyone can do it, you can. The question is, are you willing to try? Lily thought about Professor Petrov's face, his dismissive voice. She thought about that day when he wouldn't even let her play. She thought about every hour she'd practiced since then, every competition she'd won, every obstacle she'd overcome. Yes, she said firmly, let's do it. That night marked the beginning of the most intense 3 weeks of Lily's life. La Campanella, the Little Bell, was a showpiece designed to demonstrate the absolute peak of piano technique. It required incredible speed, precision, and endurance, and Lily had 3 weeks to master it. She increased her practice time to 10 hours a day. Mrs. Rodriguez came over every afternoon, and they worked measure by measure through the piece, breaking down every technical challenge. The jumps, the rapid passages, the bell-like effects that gave the piece its name. Everything had to be perfect. Her fingers developed calluses. Her back ached from sitting at the piano. She fell asleep with the melody running through her dreams. But slowly, painfully, the piece began to take shape under her hands. 2 weeks before the finals, she played it through completely for the first time without stopping. It wasn't perfect, but it was there. The skeleton was in place. Now she just had to bring it to life. The final countdown had begun. The night before the finals, Lily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the sounds of the city outside her window. Distant traffic, a dog barking somewhere down the street, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Her mind kept running through La Campanella, her fingers twitching slightly as they traced the passages in the air. Around 2 in the morning, she gave up trying to sleep and made her way to the living room. She sat at the piano but didn't turn on the light. Not that it mattered to her whether the lights were on or off. The darkness was always the same. She placed her hands on the keys and played through her pieces one more time, so softly that she hoped she wouldn't wake her mother. The notes felt comfortable under her fingers now, like old friends. But comfort wasn't enough. Tomorrow she needed to be extraordinary. When morning finally came, her mother made her favorite breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast with strawberry jam. But Lily could barely eat. Her stomach was tied in knots. You need to eat something, her mother urged gently. It's going to be a long day. Lily managed a few bites of toast. What if I freeze up there? What if I forget everything? Her mother sat down beside her and took her hand. Lily, you've played these pieces hundreds of times. Your fingers know what to do. Trust yourself. But what if it's not good enough? What if— Stop, her mother said firmly. You're not that scared 12-year-old anymore. You've earned your place in this competition. Whatever happens today, you've already proven yourself. They arrived at the conservatory 2 hours before Lily's performance time. The grand concert hall was buzzing with activity. Family members filled the seats, whispering excitedly. Photographers adjusted their equipment. Lily could feel the weight of the occasion in the air, could hear it in the nervous laughter and hushed conversations around her. A conservatory staff member led the 6 finalists backstage to a waiting area. Lily could hear the other contestants around her, some practicing fingerings in the air, others sitting in tense silence. One girl was talking rapidly about her piano teacher in New York, about studying at a prestigious summer program in Europe. Another boy was telling someone about his custom-made grand piano at home. Lily felt very small suddenly, very aware that she was different from everyone else here. These were students who'd had every advantage, every opportunity, and she was just a girl from a small apartment with an old upright piano. You're Lily Chen, right? A voice asked beside her. Lily turned toward the sound. Yes? I'm David. I heard you play in the preliminaries. He paused. You were really good. Thank you, Lily said, surprised. I heard you too. Your Chopin was beautiful. Thanks. I'm terrified for today, though. Have you ever played for an audience this size? Never, Lily admitted. My biggest competition had maybe 50 people. There are at least 300 people out there right now, David said. Plus the judges, plus Professor Petrov. Hearing his name made Lily's heart race. Have you met him before? Once at a workshop. He's intense. Really brilliant, but he has a reputation for being brutally honest. My teacher says he's made students cry just with his critiques. Lily nodded slowly. She knew all about Professor Petrov's honesty. The competition began at exactly 1 o'clock. The finalists had been assigned random performance slots, and Lily had drawn the last position. That meant she had to sit and listen to all 5 other contestants before her turn came. The first pianist was a girl who played with incredible technical precision. Every note was crisp, every run was perfectly even. The audience applauded enthusiastically when she finished. The second was David, the boy who'd spoken to her backstage. His playing was more emotional than the first girl's, less precise but more expressive. Lily found herself drawn into his performance, feeling the music rather than just hearing it. The third, fourth, and fifth contestants were all exceptional in their own ways. One had incredible power, making the piano thunder and roar. Another had a delicate touch that made even the loudest passages sound controlled and intentional. By the time the fifth contestant finished, Lily's hands were ice cold. These were all incredible musicians, students who'd trained at elite programs, who'd been playing in competitions for years. What made her think she could compete with them? Lily Chen, the announcer's voice rang out through the hall. This was it. No more waiting. No more wondering. Her mother squeezed her hand quickly before a stage assistant took over, guiding her onto the stage. The walk from the wings to the piano felt impossibly long. Lily could hear the whispers starting in the audience as people noticed her white cane. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, could sense the question in the air. How is a blind girl going to do this? The stage assistant guided her to the piano bench and quietly withdrew. Lily was alone now, sitting in front of an audience of hundreds with Professor Petrov somewhere out there in the darkness watching. She placed her hands on the keys and took a deep breath. The audience settled into silence. This was the moment that would define everything. All the hours of practice, all the sacrifices, all the determination. Everything had led to this. I'll be playing Liszt's La Campanella, she announced, her voice steadier than she felt, followed by Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu. She'd chosen the Chopin as her second piece because it was the first piece that had made her fall in love with piano. It was the piece she'd been practicing the night after Professor Petrov rejected her. It felt right to play it now. Lily began La Campanella. The opening notes rang out clear and bright like bells echoing across a valley. Her right hand leaped across the keys in those famous jumps that had taken weeks to perfect. Her left hand provided the steady rhythmic foundation while her right hand danced and sparkled above it. She poured everything into this performance. Every frustration, every moment of doubt, every hour spent practicing until her fingers ached. The piece was technically demanding, but she didn't let that show. She made it look effortless, made it sound like pure joy. As she played, something remarkable happened. She forgot about the competition, forgot about the judges, forgot about Professor Petrov. There was only the music, only this conversation between her hands and the piano, only this story she was telling through sound. The rapid passages flew under her fingers. The bell-like effects rang out crystal clear. She could feel the audience leaning forward, captivated. She could feel the energy in the room shifting, transforming. When she reached the final cascade of notes, she let them ring out clearly before bringing the piece to its triumphant conclusion. Her hands lifted from the keys, and for one perfect moment there was absolute silence. Then the applause hit like a wave. It wasn't just polite applause. It was genuine, enthusiastic, sustained. People were actually cheering. Lily felt her eyes sting with tears, but she blinked them back. She wasn't finished yet. She let the applause die down naturally, waiting until the hall was quiet again. Then she spoke. For my second piece, I'll be playing my own interpretation of Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu. She placed her hands back on the keys and began. Where La Campanella had been all brightness and technical fireworks, the Chopin was something deeper. It was the piece that had saved her during her darkest moment, and she'd spent months developing her own interpretation of it. The opening cascades flowed like water, rushing and urgent. Lily let the music tell its story, A story of struggle, of finding beauty in darkness, of refusing to give up even when everything seems impossible. She'd lived this story. She knew it intimately. The middle section, that famous melody that everyone recognizes, she played with a tenderness that made it almost unbearably beautiful. Each phrase was carefully shaped, each note given its perfect weight and timing. She wasn't just playing Chopin's notes. She was sharing her own heart through them. As the piece built toward its conclusion, Lily felt completely connected to the music, to the piano, to the moment. The final rushing passages spiraled upward, building intensity, and then suddenly resolved into those last quiet chords. She held the final notes, letting them fade naturally until there was nothing left but silence. For a long moment, nobody moved. The silence stretched out, and Lily wondered if something had gone wrong. Had she made a mistake she hadn't noticed? Then the applause began. But this wasn't like before. This was different. People weren't just clapping, they were on their feet. The sound filled the entire hall, echoing off the walls. Lily stood and bowed, her face flushed, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She could hear people in the audience. Some were actually crying. Others were calling out, "Bravo!" She'd never experienced anything like this in her life. The stage assistant came to guide her off stage, and as Lily walked back toward the wings, she heard one voice cut through all the others, a man's voice with a familiar accent, somewhere in the front rows. "Extraordinary." Professor Petrov's voice carried across the hall. "Absolutely extraordinary." Lily's steps faltered for just a moment. He'd spoken loudly enough for everyone to hear. Professor Petrov, who never gave easy compliments, who dismissed her without hearing a single note, had just called her performance extraordinary. Backstage, the other contestants crowded around her. David hugged her. "That was incredible," he said. "I've never heard anyone play like that." But Lily barely heard the congratulations. Her mind was still in the concert hall, still processing what had just happened. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Whatever the judges decided, she'd proven to herself and to everyone else that she belonged here. Now all she could do was wait for the results. The judges deliberated for what felt like hours, but was actually only 30 minutes. All 6 finalists sat backstage in the waiting area, the air thick with tension. Nobody spoke much. What was there to say? They'd all played their hearts out. Now it was out of their hands. Lily sat with her mother, holding her hand tightly. Her mind kept replaying the performance, searching for mistakes. Had she rushed that one passage? Was her timing off in the middle section? The more she thought about it, the more doubts crept in. "Stop overthinking," her mother whispered as if reading her mind. "You were perfect out there." "But what if the judges—" "Lily." Her mother's voice was firm but gentle. "Whatever happens, you've already won. You proved everyone wrong. You proved yourself right. That's what matters." Finally, a staff member appeared at the door. "The judges have reached their decision. All finalists and guests, please return to the concert hall." Lily's stomach dropped. This was it, the moment of truth. They filed back into the hall, and the finalists were arranged in a line on stage. Lily stood between David and another girl whose name she couldn't remember. Her legs felt shaky beneath her. The head judge, an elderly woman with a distinguished career as a concert pianist, stepped up to the microphone. "First, I want to congratulate all 6 of our finalists. The level of artistry we witnessed today was truly exceptional. Every one of you should be proud." Lily heard people shifting in their seats, waiting for the real announcement. "We will now announce the winners. 3rd place and a scholarship of $10,000 goes to..." She paused, and Lily felt time slow down. "Catherine Wright." Applause filled the hall. Lily felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. She hadn't placed 3rd, but that meant she'd either done better or worse. 2nd place and a scholarship of $25,000 goes to... Another pause. "David Park." More applause. David squeezed Lily's hand quickly before stepping forward. Lily's heart was hammering now. There was only one position left. And 1st place, with a full 4-year scholarship to the Riverside Music Conservatory and the opportunity to perform Grieg's Piano Concerto with the City Orchestra next month, goes to... The pause felt eternal. Lily couldn't breathe. Lily Chen. For a moment, Lily didn't move. She couldn't process what she'd heard. Had they really said her name? Then the applause crashed over her like thunder. People weren't just clapping. They were standing, cheering, some were even whistling. Her mother's hand found her shoulder, gently pushing her forward. Lily walked to the center of the stage where the head judge waited with the trophy. The woman placed it in Lily's hands. It was heavy, solid, real. "Congratulations, Lily," the judge said warmly. "Your performance today was truly moving. You have a rare gift." Lily managed to whisper a thank you, but her voice was choked with emotion. She stood there holding the trophy, listening to the applause wash over her, and felt tears streaming down her face. All the hours of practice, all the doubt, all the struggle, it had all led to this moment. But there was one more thing she needed to do. After the ceremony ended and the crowd began to disperse, Lily asked her mother to wait. "There's someone I need to talk to," she said. She made her way carefully through the backstage area, listening for that distinctive voice, that Russian accent. And then she heard it, speaking with other judges near the door to the judges' room. "Excuse me," Lily said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "Professor Petrov?" The conversation stopped. She heard footsteps approaching. "Miss Chen." His voice was different than she remembered, softer somehow. "Congratulations. You gave a remarkable performance." "Thank you, Professor." Lily paused, trying to find the right words. "I don't know if you remember, but I auditioned here last year. You were the judge." There was a long silence. Then quietly, "I remember. You told me that blind students couldn't become professional pianists, that I was wasting everyone's time." Lily heard him take a deep breath. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy. "Yes, I remember that day very clearly, and I have thought about it often these past months." "Why?" Lily asked. "Why did you think I couldn't do it?" Professor Petrov was quiet for a moment. She heard him step closer. "May we speak somewhere more private?" They moved to a small practice room off the main hallway. Lily's mother stayed close by but gave them space. Professor Petrov closed the door and they sat down. "I owe you an explanation," he began. "And an apology. A sincere one," he sighed deeply. "When I was young, studying in Moscow, my teacher was a man named Dmitry Volkov. He was one of the greatest pianists of his generation. When I was 20, Volkov began losing his sight. A degenerative condition. Within 2 years, he was completely blind." Lily listened intently, surprised by this revelation. "I watched him struggle," Professor Petrov continued. "He tried to continue performing, tried to adapt, but he could no longer learn new pieces efficiently. His career effectively ended. It destroyed him. He died bitter and frustrated, feeling that his blindness had stolen his life's purpose." "I'm sorry," Lily said softly. "I carried that experience with me for decades. I convinced myself that blindness and professional piano performance were incompatible. When you came for your audition, I saw only what I expected to see: limitation, impossibility. I did not see you. I did not see your potential. I saw only my own prejudice born from pain and limited experience." His voice cracked slightly. "Today you showed me how catastrophically wrong I was. Your performance was not just technically excellent, though it certainly was that. It was filled with genuine artistry, with emotional depth that many sighted students never achieve. You do not play despite your blindness. You play with a sensitivity and connection to the music that perhaps exists because of it." Lily felt tears welling up again, but for different reasons now. "I have taught piano for nearly 4 decades, Professor Petrov continued. I have trained many successful students. But I have never been more wrong about anyone than I was about you. And I have never been more ashamed of my own blindness, the blindness of assumption, of prejudice, of closed-mindedness." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "Miss Chen, I am deeply, profoundly sorry. I failed you as a teacher and as a human being. You deserved a chance that day, and I did not give it to you. Can you possibly forgive me?" Lily was quiet for a moment, processing everything. She thought about that terrible day, about the hurt and rejection she'd felt, but she also thought about everything that had come after, the growth, the determination, the ultimate triumph. "Professor Petrov," she said slowly, "that day you rejected me was one of the worst days of my life. But it was also the day I decided to prove you wrong. It pushed me to work harder than I ever had before. In a strange way, your rejection made me stronger. That does not excuse what I did," he said firmly. "No," Lily agreed, "but I do forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I choose not to carry that anger anymore. I won. I proved what I was capable of. That's enough for me. She heard him exhale, a sound of relief and gratitude. "Would you still be willing to be my student?" Lily asked. "I mean, I won the scholarship, so I'll be studying here. But I'd like to learn from you specifically if you're willing." "Willing?" Professor Petrov's voice was incredulous. "Miss Chen, it would be an honor. I would be learning as much from you as you would from me. Perhaps more." They stood and Professor Petrov took her hand in both of his. "Thank you," he said simply, "for your grace, for your talent, and for teaching this old teacher a lesson he desperately needed to learn." Outside the practice room, Lily's mother was waiting with Mrs. Rodriguez, who had arrived just in time to see the final performances. When Lily emerged, both women hugged her tightly. "I'm so proud of you," Mrs. Rodriguez said, her voice thick with tears. "I always knew you could do it." As they walked through the conservatory halls one final time that day, Lily carried her trophy in one hand and her cane in the other. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the rejection, the doubt, the endless hours of practice, the small victories, and now this ultimate triumph. She thought about Professor Petrov and his apology, about how people could change and grow when confronted with their mistakes. She thought about forgiveness and moving forward. But most of all, she thought about herself, about the scared 12-year-old who'd been dismissed before playing a single note, and the confident 13-year-old who'd just won the competition. She'd proven that blindness wasn't a limitation on her dreams. She'd proven that determination and talent could overcome prejudice. She'd proven that she belonged. As they stepped outside into the afternoon sunshine, Lily smiled. This wasn't the end of her journey. It was just the beginning. She had 4 years at the conservatory ahead of her, a performance with the orchestra next month, and a whole career to build. But for now, in this moment, she let herself simply be happy. She'd done what she set out to do. She'd proved her power, and that was everything.